welcome to another episode of Inside the Outpost, the podcast from Outpost in the Burbs, a concert series in Montclair, New Jersey. I'm John Hammond. I'm the talent booker for the Outpost, and I'm here on the Zoom with Cindy Stagoff, an Outpost board member. Good morning, good afternoon, Cindy. How are you doing? Ready for another one?
I'm okay. How about you? Nice to see you.
Yeah, it's good to be here. It's good to be seen.
Now in its 36th year, Outpost in the Burbs is a nonprofit outreach organization in Montclair dedicated to building community through concerts and volunteerism. With this podcast, we're giving listeners an inside view of the artists who are performing here. We'll talk with the artists about their process, their inspirations, and we'll include an exclusive recording from each featured artist.
So on this episode, we're featuring Grammy Award-winning songwriter, singer, and master storyteller Loudon Wainwright III. He's been recording and releasing music since 1970, and he released his 31st album, Lifetime Achievement, last year in 2022. That's his first album of original songs since 2014. Produced by Dick Connett and Stuart Lehrman, the album's songs, including How Old Is 75, the title track, Town and Country, and Family Vacation, all display his characteristic humor and candor. He's been writing songs since he was 7, and he's showing no signs of slowing down. And he mentions in the interview, which we'll hear, that he is planning to sing some unreleased and newly written songs at the upcoming Outpost concert.
He's also written a tremendous 2017 memoir, Liner Notes, on parents and children, exes and excess, death and decay, and a few of my other favorite things, as well as an incredibly powerful and engaging 2018 Netflix film entitled Surviving Twin, where Loudon sings songs about his father and his son, the musician Rufus Wainwright. His other musical family members include sister Sloan Wainwright and his 3 children, Martha Wainwright and Lucy Wainwright Roach. We spoke with Loudon this week ahead of his December 15th concert at Outpost, and here's that interview now. Hi, Loudon. Great to have you here at Outpost in the Burbs.
Good to be here.
Indeed.
So last time I saw you, Loudon, it was at the Paris Review, where you were singing some songs from your fabulous latest album, Lifetime Achievement. Now, at that time, it was right after the pandemic, or really in the middle of the pandemic, and you weren't touring. What have you been doing since then? I think you've been back on the road.
I haven't been working my ass off, but I have been working regularly, doing shows, and we have our jobs back for the moment.
Were you in the UK? I believe you were in the UK, no?
Yeah, after we spoke, I went to the UK for a couple of weeks, and then I've been touring in the US and Canada.
As one does.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're thrilled that you're coming to Outpost, and we'd love to talk a bit about what you might do. I assume you'll be singing some songs from Lifetime Achievement. What should we expect?
I'll probably do some of those songs. Older songs, even newer songs. I have a couple of new songs that no one has heard, really, unless you've been hanging out at my house.
Yeah.
Or we've bugged your house or something.
Yeah. You know, just a bunch of songs, really.
So are you working on an upcoming album? Is that what these songs might appear on?
Well, yeah, I mean, the way it goes, or the way that it's been for 50-something years, is I write a bunch of songs, and when I get about 15 or 20 that I think are good enough, and somebody's willing to pay for it, I go into the recording studio and make a record. I mean, that's generally how it's gone all this time. But I don't think I'll be going in soon. I think it'll be another year or two before I get back into the recording studio.
You know what number you're up to in your discography at this point?
You know,
this about 30, isn't it?
I thought this was their 31st record or album. No,
I think it's over 30.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just say that. I mean, 30 plus. Yeah, so that's that's a body of work, you could say.
And how do you feel about it all at this point?
Well, some of the records are better than some of the other records, but you know, um, I feel pretty good. I mean, it's I feel good about the songs. I think the songs are all pretty good. And some of my decisions maybe about production perhaps, or artwork, or producer even, might have been misguided. But overall, I write my songs. I have been writing my songs all this time, and that's my main job, not making records. So every couple of years I'll make one maybe, and then I take the songs out and I sing them in front of an audience, and that's really how they're designed to be received, if you will.
Well, your last producer was the stellar Lerman, right? Stuart Lerman.
Stuart Lerman and Dick Cannett. It was a co-production. The record came out on Dick's label, which is called Story Sound.
John's question is making me think of one of the songs that perhaps we'll hear on your latest album, How Old is 75? I think that connects with John's question. So how old is 75? How old are you feeling today? That's a great song.
Thanks. Well, I'm older than 75. I'm 77. So
the way life goes, hopefully.
I've forgotten how it feels to be 75. Yeah, I've always, I may have said this before. I mean, I've said it a number of times in a number of interviews and it's true. I have been kind of obsessed with passage of time and aging, and the first line on my first record, which I recorded in 1967, was in Delaware when I was younger. So I've been thinking about all of this time, and continue to do so. In fact, one of the new songs, I'll give away that one of the new songs is called Posthumously Yours.
Tell us about that.
Oh, that's all I can tell you, just the title.
Okay, well, everybody needs to come to the show to hear you sing that song.
Please.
Now, one of your songs on Lifetime Achievement is Town and Country, which talks about visiting the city during the pandemic. Are you still primarily in the eastern part of Long Island?
Yeah, I'm out here way out at the end of Long Island, and I go into town every once in a while. And that song is a description of one of those trips into town. But I mostly stay out here where it feels a little safer.
And Lifetime Achievement, your title track, I'm going to guess is about your partner, Susan Morrison, or what do you think it's about?
Well, it's about Susan, certainly. And I think she inspired it. But, I think it's also, I mean, it could be argued, or not argued, but it could be said that, it's also addressed to my audience. The people that have been listening to all these songs for this long period of time, and what a gift that is to have a group of people that will show up, as hopefully they will do in Montclair, and pay good money to sit down and hear the songs. So there's some gratitude in that song, I think.
So there's an interesting factor with your songwriting. I mean, maybe other artists are also singing about family and their, like what's happening in their family and who's about to get born and what happens from there. But maybe we don't realize it. But specifically with your audience, it strikes me that folks who've been listening to your music for a while, like 20 years later, have the experience of, wait, that guy was the baby in that song, and kind of kind of blows their mind. I assume that wasn't a conscious long-term 30-year plan on your part, but it's been interesting to see that the way your family has kind of evolved into, you know, a well-known group of performers, and they're also featured in your songs from all those years back.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they're characters in the songs. They're the people in my life. So, and that's what I seem to be inclined to do, is to write specifically about the people in my life, whether they're kids or parents or siblings or wives, ex-wives, current partners. They're the people that matter. So there's nothing. I mean, hopeful. I think what happens to me and all of those people happens to everybody and their people. So it's not unusual. So there is an identification in that regard. But I'm talking about some very specific people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Might not be unusual, but you do it particularly well. And it makes me think of your father, who looms large in your life, who I know was a writer and editor at Life magazine. And I recall you telling me in a prior interview that you particularly enjoyed his essays or his interviews that were very personal, like the one you had with Dr. King. And I would say that's the same about your songs. So do you see a relationship between the journalist and your dad? Do you think that your writing has been informed by his confessional?
Yeah, I mean, he was a guy who he died in 1988 at the relatively young age of 62. But he was a different generation and a little more buttoned down, if you will, to use that expression from the 1960s. But I always felt that his best work was writing about his personal experience, you know, having to put the family dog down, when our house burned down in northern Westchester, going to visit his mother in the nursing home for the last time. Those, and it wasn't just because I knew some of those people and that dog, but I just think that they were beautiful pieces of writing and heartfelt, and that came across on the page.
Was that a goal you had, would you say, coming up with having him as a model for what to write about and the effect to make? Was that something you wanted to achieve in your songwriting as well?
You know, I didn't really think about it. I didn't think I was going to be any kind of a writer. I'm, you know, watching my father make deadlines and, try to write books. It looked like an agonizing, not fun job. So I got caught up in the folk boom of the early 60s, and, you know, writing a 3-minute song, that seemed like fun. But I didn't have a goal as to what kind of songs they would be. I just started to fiddle around on the guitar and come up with ideas. And I will say that I do have a tendency to describe, which a journalist does. You know, quite often it's just a description of something or an event. So there is some reportage involved, I guess you could say. But I didn't think to myself, I want to be a personal songwriter, because I was writing silly novelty songs too, and, you know, all kinds of things.
When I think of two stellar personal songs of yours, though there's so many, I think of your song In C, which is a portrait of family disharmony, and then your most beautiful song, Homeless, about your mother. I think you have a line, mother really is our home, no matter where they live, you know, associating home with your mother. Those are magnificent songs, and those are pretty personal.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are.
Pretty personal.
Oh, you're going to sing some old songs at the Outpost concert. perhaps you'll choose one of those.
Oh, well, I'll have to go back and relearn them.
Would you say your technique and approach to your process has changed over the years? And do you still find songwriting fun?
Well, it's fun when you got one. You know, I've always compared it to fishing. There seems to be a random nature, mysterious. What's going to bite? What are you going to pull in, if anything? And when it happens, when a song comes to you, as it were, that's a wonderful, mysterious thing. I'm not quite sure how it happens, but I'm always delighted when it does.
And do you know when it's a keeper?
Well, I can have an idea that it might be good. The litmus test is, again, to go out in front of a group of people in an audience and play it for them.
Right.
You can tell, and it's not just about getting laughs or anything, but you can tell if it works generally that way.
Mm-hmm. To be in a particular mood. Your buddy Richard Thompson told me that he could be sipping soda on a beach and write an incredibly dark song. What about for you? Do you have to be in a particular mood to write one of these personal or comically tragic songs?
On which beach?
Oh, I see. But of course.
What kind of soda? I don't know how Richard writes his amazing songs, but they certainly are that. They kind of, in my case, they sneak up on me. You know, I'll hear a line, or again, it's like a fishing thing. You can feel a little tug on a line. You think, oh, this might be worth it. And it may end up as nothing, but you might catch something.
So lyrics come for you first before melody?
Generally speaking, yeah.
And that's still, has that been true all the way back?
I'd say so. You know, there are some songs where a melody, you know, I play the same 5 guitar chords I learned when I was 15. I haven't really stretched my musical boundaries much. So it's about the lyrics, I think, primarily, and the performance. You know, the putting a song across, either on a record or in front of an audience, is also a mysterious thing that's part of the job too.
Yeah. Well, we're looking forward to having you at the Outpost and experiencing all that together.
Yeah, everyone's very excited. So I understand from Mr. Mansfield that you're working on your Wainwright McGarrigle Christmas event at Town Hall. Can you tell us about that and what else is coming up for you?
Yes. That is coming up in December. That is it's 2 nights. I hope I can get the dates right. I think the 22nd is the night at Town Hall, and that show is sold out. And then there on the 21st, there is a show in Brooklyn that's been added. And I can't remember the name of the venue, but I'm sure if you went on Rufus or Martha's website.
I think it's at Beth Elohim in Brooklyn and Park Slope.
That sounds right. And, you know, it's going to be great people. Emmylou Harris is going to be part of it. And Sean Lennon is going to perform. My sister Sloan and my daughter Lucy Wainwright Roach will be there. And, of course, Rufus and Martha and other family members. So, yes, that's an exciting upcoming event.
A few days after December 15th at Outpost in the Burbs in Montclair.
Yes.
We're very much looking forward to the show.
Well, I'll see you guys out there in Montclair.
Loudon, thanks for joining us. Should we go out with a song? Is there a recent album track that you think?
Yeah, well, how about why not? How old is 75?
Let's check it out.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.
How old is 75? So that you're hardly alive. It's a number that's weighty. In 5 years you'll be 80, poised way up there on the high diving board. Tell me, how old is 75? Mom made it to 74. Though we all thought she'd get a bit more, time you get what you get, so why get upset? And we all want just a little bit more time, that is. Mom made it to 74. And my dad, he kicked at 62. Way too young, but then what can you do? When one's number is up, there is no prenup type agreement between God and you. My dad, he kicked at 62. And so we proceed to go hence, in the hope some of it made some sense. With our allotted amounts, what gets done is what counts. Was time wasted or was it well spent? Did ya do as you chose like your man? And I'm having a party this year. I'm inviting all those dear and near. I may need a lift if you get my drift, and I'm hoping you all will be here then. I'm having a party this year, but I know some of you won't be there. I suppose you could be anywhere, in the ether or soil, free from sorrow and toil. You'll be missed, but you won't really care anymore. I know some of you won't be there. Tell me, how old is 75? So old that you're barely alive. In 5 years I'll be 80. I will hear the fat lady belly flop, jackknife, swan dive, or a cannonball off of a high diving board. Tell me, how old is 75?
So that was How Old is 75 from Loudon Wainwright III. That's from his most recent album, Lifetime Achievement, in 2022. And it's just one of those upbeat little banjo ditties about mortality and facing whatever you face at that point in life. And his mom lived to 74, and his dad kicked it early at 62. And Loudon's, he's been doing it for 50 some years and telling these stories and reaching his audience and being direct and honest about life and songs. And so it it makes sense that he'd be looking at issues like this at this point.
Yeah, and over the course of his career, this is certainly a theme that he discusses a lot from way back, mortality and death. I think to his incredibly poignant song "Homeless" that he wrote about his mother after she passed.
Yeah.
So it's the usual reflective, yet at the same time comic song. And when we discussed it with him, I recall him saying, well, he's not 75 anymore, so I guess he's just going to have to write a song when he's 80 about how it feels at that point.
You know, I mean, we didn't get into it in our chat, but you know, one thinks about these kind of issues from time to time. I mean, it's funny because, you know, my mom is now past 90, and she is, you know, she thinks about things, and we talk about things a bit, and she says in her head she's still 35, which kind of makes sense. And you know, I feel like that's a pretty good age to think about. But you know, we're all just trudging down the life's highway here, aren't we? And it's great to have people like this who kind of illuminate it.
Yeah, and I also enjoyed the discussion about a few other songs. He talked about the title track, Lifetime Achievement. And we talked about the person that he referenced when talking about what he's won the most in life is you, as likely being his partner, Susan Morrison, who's an editor at the New Yorker. But he also said it could be interpreted by his fans as being them, that after all is said and done, all the trials and tribulations of life, what he's won is his fans' loyalty. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, that's really something, you know, because I mean, when it comes down to it, you know, person on stage with their instrument and their songs that they've created, they're in some ways, certainly their most valuable professional asset is like their relationship with their audience, isn't it? So that's a really interesting interpretation.
It also made me feel happy that he seems to be at peace with himself, because he's written a lot about dysfunctional relationships, whether with his father or with his ex-wife partners, and he seems pretty settled and happy and grateful. I also enjoyed his conversation about Town and Country, another great song on the album, because let's remember many of these songs were written during the pandemic. So, and he's out on Long Island on the Eastern Shore, so his coming into the city for him is not something he loves and not something he finds pleasant. And I recall him telling me that he typically just does it to go to doctor's appointments. And Town and Country is just a great depiction of what it felt to him to come back into the city during the pandemic. That will really mark history, when there was garbage everywhere and no one was out. And
it was a pretty weird time. Yeah, I need to go back to that song then. So hopefully we'll hear it at the show coming up. You know, I was kind of struck, and you're kind of illustrating this just in kind of, you know, researching and thinking about Loudon songs before we chatted with him. There was one, you know, there was a YouTube piece from like 2008 and from a PBS taping, and the first comment on there was, "I love Loudon. He can make you laugh and cry with a 3-minute song." And you know, he's got a special touch there. And you know, like I say, just him with guitar, banjo, it's pretty powerful because of those songs.
You know, and he's also written a really interesting memoir, and there's a Netflix show that he's been in, Surviving Twin. Anyone listening to this, if they haven't heard it before, I encourage them to put it at the top of their list.
Oh, that's really interesting.
And there too, he talks about really heartfelt experiences with his father, who had a whole range of issues, including alcoholism, and how that's impacted him and the way he raised his kids. He's brutally honest about some of his triumphs and many of his failings
in his interview as well as his songs, I guess. And why is it called Surviving Twin? Was he actually one?
I do know the answer to this question, and I'm now not remembering, so I don't want to conjecture. It's either about he or his dad. Okay. I cannot remember.
We'll have to watch the Netflix show.
Yes.
So
I remembered at the moment, but
that's a great tip. But yeah, so that show's going to be a lot of fun. December 15th coming up at Outpost in the Burbs in
Very
Montclair.
excited. It's
Looking
gonna be
forward
great.
to it.
It's
Yeah,
gonna be great.
yeah. So more shows coming up. We're excited to move into the spring season pretty soon. This episode will actually be coming obviously ahead of Loudon's show, and that's why we're doing it in advance, and we're featuring an album track rather than a live recording. And we'll also have a new podcast coming from the recent Ted Leo show that is happening and will have happened. What's the conjunctive form in verbs when you're recording at one point in a podcast and you know it's going to be happening later? Wow.
Just avoid it all and say about a great show.
About a great show on December 1st at Outpost with Ted Leo. And that will be a fun podcast as well. And then up and coming in 2024, we're moving into our spring season with some great shows. We'll kick off as usual with the Light of Day Winterfest. This will be the 2020 was the 20th anniversary, and I think they did one more since then. So I guess this will be the 22nd annual Light of Day Festival. And Outpost and Montclair were honored to be an ongoing partner and help present there.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all touched by the disease that the concert funds research
yeah,
about Parkinson's and I believe ALS.
And ALS, yeah.
Many of us are touched by friends who have it, or we might have it ourselves. It's a great group of people that get involved with the concert every year. Yeah,
and that's a highlight of the show every year, and we so appreciate all the work that group does in putting all that together. So that's January 27th. The following week, Irish singer-songwriter Foy Vance will be in Montclair. Very much looking forward to that show. We've also announced Mary Gaucher coming later in March, and more shows coming and to be announced. And stay tuned to all your Outpost channels to get all that info.
Well, this has been another wonderful Inside the Outpost, a behind-the-scenes podcast from Outpost in the Burbs. Our show is mixed and edited by Paul Uva. Artwork is by Krista Schultz. Michael Stahl is our house photographer. Rob Halper is our house videographer. And we have social media help from Jaclyn and Antonacci. Our theme music is I Can't Settle by the wonderful James Maddock.
Be sure to like Outpost in the Burbs on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok, actually. That's new this fall, courtesy of our great partnership with marketing students at MSU. Check out our show videos on our YouTube channel. Sign up for the mailing list at outpostintheburbs.org. And if you're enjoying the podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast channel, and especially on Apple Music. If you can rate and review the show there, it helps other listeners find the show. And that's what we're trying to do. So thanks very much, Cindy. Great talking to you. We'll see you at the show.
Can't wait. Good to see you.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.